made contact and shattered.
At some point, Chris locates what's called a dry bag.
Law enforcement had considered Laundrie the only person of interest in the murder of his fiancée, Gabby Petito.
Liberty, a missing 4-year-old. The parents have called the advised that the mother had went for a walk, came home, now they can't find her. They've been yelling for her. She's been gone for about 10 minutes now.
Turn it over to another agency. Let's get some help.
Hello? John.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. It's super dark and cloudy this morning, so sorry that the lighting's sort of weird. So today we're going to be doing sort of like a mid-week recap of the Idaho 4 case. We spoke on Monday morning and sort of recapped the information from the weekend. Now I've kind of collected some stuff that I put together that I want to share with you that has kind of happened this week. So it's really not much. Obviously, we know that there is still no suspect named or person of interest, and obviously no arrest. It's going on, over 3 weeks at this point, and no answers from law enforcement, and yet they want our help, the public's help, finding CCTV footage and just any information that you have about that night. You are asked to bring it to law enforcement, and their number I will put up eventually in chat, or if Ahmad could put it up. Let me just read their statement that they put up last night, which is like an update. It's their little press release. Some of the information that I'm reading, I actually have video clips of law enforcement coming out saying this stuff. So we'll be going through some statements from law enforcement, from Moscow police, as well as Idaho State Police. We'll be talking to, I've clipped in an FBI profiler, the behavioral unit. She went on the air last night. Her name is Mary O'Toole. She's retired, and she has a PhD. She gives good insight, so I clipped her clip in there. We'll also be going through Jack. Every Jack that we have in the case, we're going to just discuss it a little bit. I know that there's some information out there already about Jack, one of the Jacks leaving the country. I have not seen 100% confirmation on that. I've only seen talk of it on social media. And then Ashley Banfield actually brought it up as well. So I have that clip also. What else do I have? We're going to be talking about the dog, the information that we found out about the dog, and obviously the fact that it's still an active crime scene. And that's what I've got for you guys. So once again, thank you guys for being here. Good morning, Phantom, Evil CJ Podcast, Mel Mac, Christy B, Living the Dream, Twisted Gemini. It's good to see you guys. I'm so glad you're here. So last night, Moscow put out like a little press release. It says starting Wednesday, which is obviously today, December 7th, and potentially into Thursday, Moscow Police Chief James Fry, along with members of the department, will collect and remove some of the victims' personal belongings from the residence, which are no longer needed for the investigation, so that they can be returned to the families. The items will be loaded into a truck and transferred to a secure location until the families can collect the belongings. These arrangements were made in coordination with the families. Anyone near the residence Wednesday morning is asked to keep roads clear. Movement of the items will be done as privately as possible in an effort to maintain respect for the victims and their families. We ask members of the media and community to be respectful in this process. The house remains an active crime scene, and progress continues to be made in the investigation. So they're claiming that there's progress being made. So it's probably what we've all kind of pondered about, the over 113 pieces of evidence they've collected, over 4,000 photos they've taken. They must have something. I'm not saying that they have the suspect in mind. I would hope they do, and they're just not releasing it to the public. But I don't know. They obviously have more information than the public has, and even the families seem to have. So let's just get into the pre-recorded stuff. The clips that I've put together, pretty much like ESPN shows you guys the highlights for the sports games. I've got some highlights since Monday on this case, okay? So I will be pausing it and we can elaborate and discuss further. I never finished Court TV's latest segment on the case, so I would love to play that with you guys and go through that as well. So Allison said Hoodie Guy goes by John too. Okay, thank you for letting us know that. I didn't know that. And good morning, Che Benet and Megan, Princess Megan Elsa, and everyone else who has joined us. Thanks for being here. And hit that like button. It's much appreciated.
Tomorrow, me and my command team and other individuals will be going in to box up personal belongings of the people that live there. And we're going to be getting those items back to the families. It's time for us to get those things back that really mean something to those families and hopefully to help with some of their healing. Well, we have a lot of investigators investigating, and I'm not tied into the investigation side of it where I'm physically interviewing people, and it's important to me. It's important for us as a department to go in and take care of the families and get the items for them so that they can have some of those back and some of those memories back that are fond memories. And we're at that point in the investigation where we're still gathering information, we're still gathering tips, we're still gathering evidence, we're still doing everything we need to do. This case is not going.
So that was his one statement. Here is his another statement that I believe was on Fox that I've clipped in. My question is, he said we're still, going through investigations, the process of, interviews, etc. So how were they able to clear so many people so soon? Like he literally just said, we're still going through A, B, and C. I mean, you guys heard him. So my thing is if they're still kind of going through things, I'm kind of concerned with how quickly certain people were cleared. However, I want to make it clear, a very easy way for people to be cleared, even though some people are like, why, this is weird, he's suspicious or whatever. Cell phone data, I don't know how long it would take for them to get like a warrant and go through, but if they have the cell phone data and they've cleared people, then I guess we'll have to trust their clearing process. But to me, it just seems like they're still trying to tell the public, we're still doing things behind the scenes and we've got things going on, blah, blah, blah. And it's just like, but you've come out and said this person, this, and this, and this aren't related. I don't know. I can't help but wonder, if they're still in the beginning stages, it seems. How were those people? We're only on week 3. Like, I know everyone's like, it's been 3 weeks, but guys, think about it from this point of view. All those people and all those instances that they said are unrelated, including the couple from out of state that was killed in their sleep. We went through it in the last live stream, but I mean, the family has come out saying exactly what Tony just said in chat. They cleared a lot of people too soon, in my opinion. I mean, I'm just curious how they got that clearance so quickly. And if it is cell phone data, then that makes sense. So, I don't want to go down too hard on certain people because obviously no suspect or person of interest has been named. But I'm just curious, are these alibis absolutely solid, or are they just alibis that, so-and-so saw me here, Jesse Lynn says, I agree with you, Amber. I did just see before you went live that they said they can and will re-interview anyone they have already interviewed if evidence leads them back to that door. Wow. And that's good that they're openly saying that instead of coming out and being prideful and just saying like, nope, we already talked to them. I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? So that's actually relieving in a way.
We're still gathering tips, we're still gathering evidence, we're still doing everything we need to do. This case is not going cold. We have tips coming in. We have investigators out every day interviewing people. We're still reviewing evidence. We're still looking at all aspects of this. And I said early on that no stone will go unturned. And I mean that. We are going to continue. This case is not going cold.
And true crime fallacies brings up a good point, and I've heard Duty Ron mention this. I've heard Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff. You know, they've all pretty much said exactly what we're kind of saying, that, you know, them being cleared does not mean anything other than, you know, just for the moment. Like, their exact words actually were, these individuals are not to be believed to be involved in the crime at this moment or at this time. So even when they said, how have you been able to clear these people? Or they've used the word clear, like reporters to law enforcement, and law enforcement won't say the word cleared back to them. They'll just say, we believe at this time that they are not involved. So it's exactly what True Fallacies is saying. You know, it's just for the moment. If they have any reason, you know, there's been cases where they've pulled people back in interviews years and years later. So hopefully this doesn't end up being that way, but we don't think they're involved is not the same as being cleared, in my opinion. I agree, Allison. It leaves a room for somebody to be like, well, now we do believe they're involved, you know? So here is Mary O'Toole, the retired FBI agent who helped build the behavioral analysis unit. So she's got very interesting insight. She's got her PhD, she's been on other channels too. I don't know if you guys have seen her comment, but she's been kind of speaking on this case, and I just think that she has really good insight. So I clipped her stuff together, and we'll just keep continuing watching. And good morning, everyone who has joined us. Hit the like if you haven't done so already. And thanks so much for being here.
Those injury patterns from what's being reported appear to be more severe and different than the other victims. And when we would go into crime scenes, we would look at the wounds, the pathology of the wounds, and try to discern, was the offender after just one victim? And that's where the offender would focus their time and their attention. And oftentimes that was manifested in the number of injuries, the type of injuries, how the victim was placed at the crime scene. So that oftentimes is a way for profilers and detectives to discern who was the victim, who was the targeted victim. But I will also say this, there is evidence of planning in this crime scene. This offender brought the weapon with him, didn't grab something out of the kitchen drawer, or at least we're not advised that that happened. So brought a weapon, knew how to get in, and knew how to get out of that residence. And so the most important part of the crime is attacking the victims.
So just like the thumbnail says, evidence of premeditation. This expert, and I trust her opinion, she's pretty much saying the same thing that I've heard other talking heads say, including law enforcement who have YouTube channels. You know, the fact that the knife was brought to the residency, the fact that the knife, you know, the murder weapon, which, by the way, they still have not found, the knife aspect to me, and I'm not sure how chat feels, but it shows a bit of premeditation, in my opinion.
So it doesn't make sense that in a planned crime scene, the offender just kind of wings it when it comes time to go after the victim, but does all the rest of the planning. So for those reasons, I would say the offender knew who was going to be targeted at the point where they entered the home. Well, certainly enough planning to be successful. And I think that there was knowledge of the inside of that house in order to move around with the furniture there and people leaving things on the floor and so forth. So to me, I would certainly be looking at whether or not that.
And I thought that was such a good element and detail to bring up that a lot of people haven't really considered. You know, we've seen the pictures from the Daily Mail and other media sources that have shown us pictures inside, and it's the typical college house, right? You know, furniture mismatched all over the place. You know, the kitchen's a mess. So the fact, like she's saying, Mary O'Toole is saying, you know, they were able to access this house not only through like the entry, like, you know, back door, however they got in, but, you know, they've been able to maneuver around this place. Like, I don't know exactly what their rooms looked like. Were their rooms tidy? Were their rooms scattered about, you know? So it's just interesting to think about, like, this perpetrator sneaking through this house and just being confident in his way of moving around it, I guess. Good morning, Just Saying, and everyone else who has joined us. It bothers me, Linda said, that the dog didn't bark. I think they knew the person. And here's the thing, you know, I said we were going to talk about the dog, and since we're on it right now, was the dog crated? Like, was that like a normal thing for Kaylee to do? Put the dog in the crate at nighttime. The crate is somewhere. Like, where is the crate? Because we've heard this week now another update that they've confirmed totally that the dog was not in one of the rooms where the crimes occurred. So I'm just curious, like, did they crate the dog before the girls went to bed? Like, did Kaylee come home, take the dog out to go potty, and then say, okay, you're going to bed, and put it in its crate, and then she and Maddie go to bed? Or was it this perpetrator comes in, knows the dog, corrals the dog himself into a room, that wasn't a crime scene room, or the crate? Like, that's what I'm wondering. Like, was the dog behind closed doors somewhere, like not in a crate, or was the dog crated and it's just his usual little bed? That's what I'm curious about. And I know it's just such a little minor detail, but I think that it could mean something in the way of like people saying like the dog must have been comfortable with that person. You know, like if somebody comes in and the dog smells you and, oh, okay, you're fine. You know, would the dog let this person be like, shoo, shoo, you're going in this room, and shut the door on it? You know what I mean? Like, I'm just curious as far as like where, I know they said the dog was in a room that a crime didn't occur in, but was the dog, you know, okay being behind that door? You know, was it whimpering? I know people are saying the dog didn't bark, but I'm curious, like the way that the dog was found and stuff, you know, who put him behind that door? Because they're saying that the dog was in a room where a crime didn't occur. You know, most dogs like to sleep with their owners at night, even if they are crate trained. I feel like a lot of people put like the crate either in their room, especially a little dog like this, or I don't know. Enton said the dog he found an yeah, yes, I know. Okay, whenever see, because I've heard people mention a crate. Enton said he was found in another room, never heard of a crate. Yeah, I know that Brian never said the word crate, but I've heard other people say that the dog was crate trained. So that's where I'm at, where I'm just wondering, you know, okay, so just saying said a neighbor said he heard a dog barking for a couple hours. Well, if that's true, then another neighbor said that they didn't hear anything. So, and then the other thing is, yeah, that's true. The dog could have gone in with one of the other roommates because they went to bed first. Yeah, that's true. That's what I'm curious on. Which room was the dog in? Because they said that it was in a room where a crime didn't occur. Why wouldn't they have just said it was in a roommate's room, a surviving roommate's room? Tony said it was someone they knew. They maybe told them it was time to go to bed, and the dog went into the room or a crate. I remember them saying the dog was outside at first. The story has changed, in my opinion. I agree. I know I'm not losing it, because somebody, and when did the dog get taken to the Humane Society? That's what I don't get. No, Amanda, it was not stated the dog was in Kaylee's room. It's been stated that the dog was in a room where a crime didn't occur. And I know Kaylee's room is one of those rooms because she was rooming with Maddie, but I've never heard them say it was Kaylee's room. I think the dog may have been in the 6th bedroom that was rented but empty. Yeah, see, nobody knows. My thoughts were the perp probably met the dog inadvertently, put him in an extra bedroom. Perp knew the dog in the house. I'm there with you, Dustin. Like, I think it's something like that. Like, the dog knew the person. They had some sort of like, if the dog was out of the crate at that point when the perp is in the house. Oh, hey, buddy, you know, pet, pet, pet. Shut the door, get him behind the door. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And yeah, that's true. All dogs are different. I know, sweetie pie. I thought about that too, because there's a picture in this that I edited in of the dog with Jack D. And it just makes me wonder, you know, and hi, Karen. It's good to see you. I hope you had a good time with your family. I know that people, well, I just wonder if the dog wonders where his mom is, and I'm sure he does. It's so sad. Okay, law enforcement took the dog to the pound and Jack came and got him. Okay. All right, let's continue this, guys. Thanks for being here and stay with me. We got a lot that I've clipped together and I want to watch with you guys, okay?
Offender had been inside that house on a previous occasion. And I think it's also likely that that offender has been around that house on previous occasions, just to know in real time, it's called real time as opposed to 2 weeks ago, what the intelligence is in terms of what's going on inside that house. So all of that falls under the category of planning. Well, there's definitely going to be forensic evidence at this crime scene, and that can include fingerprints, hairs, fibers, footprints, and of course, the gold standard, which is DNA. So it's very likely that when this offender left the crime scene, they would have had blood on them. And it's also very likely that this offender cut themselves during the crime because of the excessive amount of stabbing that probably took place. The hand slides down on the blade and cuts the hand of the offender, and there's blood deposited at the crime scene. But if the offender did do even more planning than I'm describing here, it is possible that they left even a change of clothes somewhere outside of the home so that they're not running down the street with bloody clothes. So,
do you guys think that that scenario is possible, like she just stated? And here's where I'm at. Either the perpetrator undressed and changed. I'm almost thinking, like, is it possible this perp showered at the residence? But then that is way too risky to be showering with 2 surviving roommates down on the bottom floor, right? So is it like Mary O'Toole is saying, this was premeditated enough where this perp hid clothes outside? Or I don't know. They probably wore black so blood wouldn't show. Good point, sweetie pie. I mean, truly, it really wouldn't show. No blood outside. And that's the thing, is there were pictures. Like, if we go through some of the early reports and pictures, they are putting evidence markers outside, like near, like, I don't know if it's like blood on leaves maybe they thought they'd seen or something. Tony said, I feel he cleaned up before he left, in my opinion. Backpack to shove bloody clothes in my opinion. I mean, we've seen stuff like this all the time in other cases, right? And yes, Hildy, maybe the dog was with the surviving roommates. I wish they would have clarified that instead of just telling us he was in a room where a crime didn't occur. So yeah, I don't know if we can keep the shower theory up on the table or not, which would be extremely risky. But yeah, Karen, I mean, there would have been so much blood that, did they leave in the bloody clothes, or did they have a backpack and clothes stashed somewhere? That, would scream so much more premeditation in this crime. But to commit this crime, 4 people, and it's been almost 4 weeks soon by the end of this week. I mean, they've gotten away with this thus far. Most murders are done by people the victims know, especially family, or I don't know that word, quasi-family, like common law spouses or exes. Next is neighbors or acquaintances, which includes guys from the bars who follow. And I'm a little bit sketched out by the fraternity president, which I forgot to tell you guys. I have his interviews in here too. I literally have 3 interviews from him, and he gives us jack beep nothing. But the fact that he gives us nothing, I feel, is even more significant, because you'll see. I don't know. I don't want to say that everybody's suspicious to me, but I really want your guys' opinion on the frat president's interviews. So Matt Bond, good to see you. If perp knew the house, like they say, they would have known there was the other floor. Yeah, I know. Almost 4 weeks now. Come on, Idaho. Coveralls and shoe coverings stuffed into duffel bag upon exit. That's the only way there would be no bloody footprints outside. Right. And there's no way someone's going barefoot. Good morning, CDT. It's good to see you. All right, guys. So let's carry on.
So I don't want to be speculative about this, but there are ways that they can mitigate that risk level once they exited that home.
So there was a little bit of a miscommunication. Initially last week, it was reported that Kaylee's family said there was a stalker. I sat down with them Friday night, and they were very clear. They do not know of a specific stalker. Kaylee never told them of a specific stalker.
So this part I'm really annoyed with. Okay, first there was a stalker. Then the sister says, I don't know anything about a stalker. Then the father is asked by a reporter, did Kaylee have a stalker or anybody that made her feel uncomfortable? And the father says yes. Now, that was a two-part question. We spoke about it when that interview first came out. The reporter asked the father, do you know of a stalker or maybe somebody that made Kaylee feel uncomfortable? And he said yes. We don't know which one he was saying yes to. But regardless, now all of a sudden, police have been saying ever since this whisper of a stalker being said, they said, well, we're following up on everything we know about it. And we need to find out if it was just one-time thing or if it was a regular occurrence, blah, 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 blah. I'm sorry. I don't know how you guys feel, but somebody could be creepy to you one time, and just because they're not labeled like stalker level, like I still think that should be honed in on and focused on. So I'm just very confused about, there was a stalker. Sister says, no, there wasn't. Father says, yes, when he's asked if there was a stalker or somebody that made her feel uncomfortable. Now police is coming out saying this week, we've talked to the alleged stalker and blah, 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 blah. And we'll play into what they say. But it's just really annoying me that like this stalker whisper has been going about, and I feel like it's been very downplayed. But at the same time, while it's been downplayed, I feel like it's been like dramatized, if that's even possible. Like at this point, we should know by now, like, was there or wasn't there somebody who was stalking this girl? And now they've come out, and I'll play the clip where they speak on them talking to these stalkers. Now it's just somebody who is trying to pick up girls. Even still, it's just very, very strange. And just another example of mixed messaging. Like even Brian started this whole segment out just now. He's like, well, there was a bit of miscommunication. And it's like, what? He's pretty much saying that female reporter last week, I think it was on Good Morning America, misreported the fact that Kaylee had a stalker, because the Miss Morning reporter asked Steve Kaylee's father, I always mess her last name up, I'm sorry guys, did she have a stalker or somebody that made her feel uncomfortable? And Steve said yes, but we don't know which one he was saying yes to. And now Brian's coming out saying like that was miscommunication. How is that miscommunication? So let me just rewind this and play this through, because I just think that this stalker thing is just another aspect that's just been like all over the place, and there's no need for it to have been that way.
So there was a little bit of a miscommunication. Initially last week, it was reported that Kaylee's family said there was a stalker. I sat down with them Friday night, and they were very clear. They do not know of a specific stalker. Kaylee never told them of a specific stalker. They said that, is it possible someone was following her around? Yes, it's possible.
So they don't know of a specific stalker, but then yet law enforcement comes out and says, we found the guy. It's just so weird. I'm sorry. It's just, I don't know. I still think that it's a red flag in the case, even if he was somebody that the police spoke with. But at the same time, I'm just like, why is the reporting of this all over the place? Like with the media, with the family, and I don't mean to shame the family, and I don't want anyone to think I am, but I'm just saying, like, we're trying to get a grasp on this, and it's very, very difficult. Like even Brian Enton said in his special over the weekend that like it's been very hard to cover this case because the information is changing and developing, and this is one way and this is that way the next day. Yes, exactly, Jesse Lynn. Law enforcement keeps giving conflicting statements. And yes, Allison, is that 100% that the family has hired a private investigator? Because I know that Kaylee's family spoke on it. I'm concerned that they'll be taken advantage of. I know that that's not always the case with private investigators, but I just don't want somebody to prey on their vulnerability right now and promise them answers and then just take money from them, because that can happen. I'm not saying that that is what's happening, but I am a little bit concerned. I don't want them to be taken advantage of while they're in a very vulnerable state.
But they didn't know of anything specific.
Anything else?
Yeah, what you said about the dog is interesting. A lot of people have been interested in this Golden Doodle Murphy. Is it possible that he was in the room, that he had evidence on him because he immediately went to the Humane Society? People were concerned that he might not have been tested. Now we learned today that he was not in the crimes, in the part of the house where the crimes were committed, according to the police.
Now say they identified.
So not in the house, part of the house where the crimes committed. Okay, so can they just tell us that it was with the surviving roommates or what? Like, I really want to know.
An incident involving one of the victims, Kaylee Goncalves, at a local business, which may have explained a reference to a stalker she made to friends and family. According to police, in mid-October, 2 males were seen inside a local business. They parted ways, and one male appeared to follow Kaylee inside the business. And as she exited to walk towards her car, the guy turned away, and it did not appear he made any contact with her. Detectives actually contacted both the guys and learned that the two were apparently attempting to just pick up women. Now, police have said there's no evidence the men took part in the murders. Police also saying tonight that a dog was found belonging to Kaylee in the home by officers, but that it had not been found in a room where the crimes had been committed. No evidence was found on the dog, and there is no indication it even entered the crime scene.
So just a little bit of concern there. The whereabouts of the dog. I think that that's important because most people's dogs sleep with them at night. I think that I don't know exactly what piece of the puzzle the dog plays in, but I do think that it's something significant. I don't know if it's because it proves that the dog was comfortable with the perpetrator, or if it means that the perpetrator put the dog away in another room as to not bother him while he commits the crimes. Like, I just don't know the exact spot that the dog fits in, but I think it's interesting, and it's an interesting element. So this says Idaho State Police, and this was yesterday, the 6th. Idaho State Police Communications Director Aaron Snell confirmed investigators are probing the movements of victims Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle prior to the killings. So a lot of people are still wondering who was the target, just because the father has come out saying that Kaylee's injuries were worse than Maddie's. To me, I don't believe that that is significant proof that Kaylee was the target. I still think that it's still up in the air on who the target was. I'm not sure how you guys are feeling about that. Good morning, the House Huddle and Nicole. It's good to see you guys. I was going to say the door could have been shut in another room, but why not mention if he was found alone or with somebody? Yeah, that's what I mean, is like, why won't they just come out saying the dog was with a surviving roommate? Or why won't they come out saying the dog was in its crate behind the door, you know, where it always sleeps? Instead, they've been vague on the dog being in a room where a crime didn't commit. Be bent. People have been saying that it was in Kaylee's room, but we have not found confirmation of the exact bedroom. Law enforcement, in fact, has been specific to say just in a room that a crime wasn't committed. So the fact that it was found in Kaylee's room, but Kaylee was in Maddie's room, I've heard that rumor, but that's exactly what it is. It's a rumor. We need more confirmation of its whereabouts, in my opinion, before we can say indefinitely, this is where the dog was, and this is why.
Meantime, police asking the public to help them fill in key gaps in the timeline the night that 4 students were stabbed to death. Now, part of that timeline includes a party at a fraternity house where investigators believe Xana and Ethan were at some point before they returned home.
Yeah, Nicole, this was our very first time speaking with the president of that fraternity. You know, they've really been under the microscope because we know 2 of the victims were at that fraternity house a short time before the murders. The president says they are fully cooperating with the police.
Now, I want your guys' opinion on the president's interviews. Again, they're very short. We don't really get much from him, but I believe the fact that we don't really get much also says volumes. And again, I understand that the school has asked them not to comment to the media and to only talk to the police, but I don't know, guys. I get this really weird feeling from this president, and my fiance was watching me edit this, and he was sort of like, you know, just puzzled. I'll just say that.
The flag is at half-staff at the University of Idaho Sigma Chi Fraternity House, the last place victims Xana Kernodle and Ethan Chapin were seen alive, according to police. For the first time, we are hearing from the fraternity's president.
I knew them. Ethan was always in our house. Xana was a good friend before, Ethan even came up. But that's all I really want to talk about right now because I actually have class here in like 15 minutes.
Sigma.
He's got class there in 15 minutes. He's got to go.
Chi President Reed Offson says the fraternity is cooperating with the investigation. The fraternity is about half a block from the house where the murders happened.
Half a block from the house, guys. And we seen on Brian Enton's special, I think it was actually one of the segments before his special came out. I want to say it was maybe Friday night. Either way, Brian shows us a little bit of like the neighborhood, and he shows us how close the frat house is. Oh my gosh, yes, CDT. I didn't even notice that. So eerie, an E and an X. University of Idaho is on the line. This can ruin the school for future period. Oh, I'm 100%, Marshall Dove. I hate to say it, but I think their admissions are definitely going to drop. And I'm sure there's people transferring out as we speak.
Does anyone know where they were during that timeline? Like, there's still this big chunk where...
As of right now, we've told Moscow PD, Idaho State Police, and the FBI all we know. We're kind of leaving it up to them to piece it together. Obviously, we don't have the utilities or resources to do it on our own, so we're...
No one's asking you to do it on your own.
Just putting full faith in the officers and in the detectives doing it. But that's all I really know right now.
Are there any cameras around?
Not on the property.
So there's another reporter there, which I'll show that clip too, and it's from Daily Mail. He also tries to get information from that gentleman and doesn't really get much, but there's no cameras, and he's pretty much given the law enforcement everything that they need to know. And yeah, frats and sororities have been told not to talk to the media. They're only supposed to talk to the police. And yeah, what's up, Buttercup? I'm glad it's not just me, because in every single interview, it seems like he can't get away quick enough. And like, I get it. Like, who wants to talk to the Daily Mail, But Twisted Gemini, I'm feeling that way too. And like, we could be wrong. I'm going to put it out there. I could be totally wrong about my hunch. Listen, we said the same thing about the guy in the camera footage at the food truck place. Something's weird. You know what I mean? He seems nervous, in a rush to get off of the reporter. And yeah, I feel the same way, Tony. Like, he couldn't run away quick enough. And here's the thing. One of his brothers is dead. I mean, let's just get down to it. Like, this, no one's asking this kid for information about like his own dating life. Like, hey, we really want to know like which sorority girl is the prettiest, blah, blah, blah. They're asking him information about something very serious. And I'm pretty sure his professor would be okay if he was a little bit late to class so that he could answer some questions in regards to this investigation going on. But that's just me. And yes, I agree, Miss Wells. Brian Enton is rather handsome. And I can't help but kind of laugh a little bit knowing he's from Miami, Florida, and he's here in the snow. I feel terrible for him. And yes, the students were told not to speak, but I don't know. There's still something just very weird about this frat president, in my opinion.
Moscow police say they are investigating the time frame between 9 p.m. the night before the murders on November 12th and 1:45 a.m. when Ethan and Xana were believed to be at the Sigma Chi house.
A lot of speculation and a lot of scrutiny is going into the police and their investigative work. After all, they still have no suspects.
And that very well could be true. Colorado mountain life, tensions are high with everyone. The students have been told not to talk to any media. He has a brother who has died. Yes, he is nervous. I mean, that's your opinion. We don't know what's going on internally in somebody's mind and body and all that. He very well could just be nervous and also told not to speak to the media. But we just do not know that 100%. Some people might think there's nothing weird about it, and that's your opinion. That's fine. In my opinion, I felt like in every single interview with this guy, he was in a hurry to get away, and it had nothing to do with we're not supposed to talk to the media. I mean, he never once said the school has told us not to speak to the media. He's just said, I gotta go. So I'm sorry. It's just my opinion. If you don't agree with it, then that's fine. I just think that this frat element in this, and the fact that that was one of the last places that Ethan and Xana were, and the fact that police are asking for CCTV footage and anything that you know about their whereabouts around the time that they were at this party, and the fact that the party house is very close to the crime scene. I mean, I think that it's completely fair for us to kind of be questioning everybody and anybody around this crime scene that night. So.
And no persons of interest, at least as far as they've told us. I asked the police some of these tough questions about what they're doing at this moment and didn't get much of a response back. However, along the way, I learned that that could all be part of a greater strategy.
Following new revelations that Kaylee Goncalves had more significant injuries than Maddie Mogan, her best friend asleep in the same bed, Moscow PD remains quiet in their ongoing investigation. But new information this morning. Moscow PD says it analyzed a reported incident from October and discounted claims.
I would have to agree, Caroline. Like, she said the university has about zero authority to tell these kids how to conduct themselves out in the real world. I even found the university president pretty disrespectful when he spoke on this matter.
That Kaylee had a stalker. The police have narrowed in on an approximate 1 mile.
I just feel like the university is acting like 4 people weren't killed. Like, they're just like, oh, we got to keep our image. Make sure the frat and the sorority kids don't talk to anyone but the police. It's like, they're not even saying anything to the police, you would think, because it's been 3 weeks and there's no suspect or person of interest. Like, I'm sorry, but something is just not right. I don't know if it's the university or what.
By 1 mile perimeter, asking anyone with at-home surveillance videos from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. on the night of the murders to come turn it in.
I think that that's their goal, Liam's mama. The school doesn't want to lose money, financial donations, etc. They are doing it strategically, I believe, to protect themselves. Exactly, to protect themselves. And I don't think that they're doing themselves any favors. Sometimes it says a lot about how you are or how, you know, your business or whatever is by how you react in hard times like this. And I think that they've done a disservice to the victims, to the community. Law enforcement has dropped the ball. Media has dropped the ball here. And I don't know what that has anything to do with it, Pee Wee Vision, but I see what you're saying. And yeah, school wants enrollments, but college students are usually 18 to 21 and still very young. It could simply be he's young and doesn't do well on camera. I'd be interested to see another interview of him. This was my first time seeing him. Well, I have 3 of them here, and each of them are pretty much the same. 1 over 1,000 watching and only 228 liked the video. Hit the like, people. Thank you, Christy B. Appreciate that. Yes. Nani. Unfortunately, education is still a business and they're covering their asses. Yeah. And it doesn't look good for business how they're handling this. That's just my opinion. And I'm sorry, guys. Look at this timeline that they want from people. I can't help but see that the fraternity is front and center of it.
And there's still a cloud of mystery surrounding a nearly 5-hour window from 9 p.m. to 1:45 a.m. when Ethan Chapin and Xana Kernodle were believed to be at the Sigma Chi fraternity house.
I'm Alex. I'm a reporter with News Nation.
I went to the fraternities and the sororities to find out what they remember.
Just that night, were you here? Was there a party going on or anything? Because the police have this huge window where they're trying to figure out what happened.
The chapter president says he's turned over all information to the police and to the FBI, saying there's nothing they know that the police don't.
So the fraternity president told this reporter, there's nothing the fraternity knows that the police don't. So what does that mean? They know something, but the police know it too? I mean, that doesn't make it sound any better. So that makes me think that there was something that was a red flag, perhaps. There's nothing that we know that the police don't already know. So I don't know if that means that something did happen and they know about it, but they've passed that message along, or what? And here, this is updated from yesterday. Police believe Ethan and Xana visited the Sigma Chi house about 9 p.m. on November 12th until 1:45 a.m. when they returned to Xana's home. So they're asking for the information regarding this house. And they're asking about information regarding the fraternity house for a reason. There's something that's pointing them in that direction. Yes, Tony, I agree. Everyone knows something happened, in my opinion. I agree. That would be the only way, because remember when Kaylee's father said that there's entities that are or establishment. He made some comment about people protecting themselves or something, and that he wasn't looking to protect them or something like that. He made some comment about that. The city is a business also. The college is a main source of revenue. Right. And just think, Allison, that corner club bar or whatever, I mean, that is huge income for that little community. Just, alcohol brings in a lot of revenue. There's a lot of markup. It literally costs nothing for alcohol, but they charge, enough to make lots of money with that. What does everyone think about the frat not having cameras on the doors? Normal? Sorry if you already spoke on it. We didn't. We just kind of heard them tell Brian Enton and Daily Mail no cameras. It's interesting. Are they not factoring in Xana's dad stating he spoke to Xana around midnight and she was at home? I wonder if he was mixed up on the night. And you're right. I need to revisit his statement. Because did he say she was home? Because last I remember, he said, I spoke to Xana around midnight and everything was fine. And then he also says she was just home hanging out with her boyfriend. So I guess that could sort of mean that, yeah, she was home around midnight and everything was fine. But I swear he says I spoke to her around midnight and everything was fine. But I didn't hear him say she was at home at midnight. But then he did say she was just home hanging out with her boyfriend. So it was like two statements by the father. I'd have to re-listen to that again, because it was the same interview with Xana's father. He mentions the bruises that she had gotten from the knife. I spoke to her around midnight. Everything was fine. And then in that same one, he speaks about Ethan and her just hanging out at home. So I don't know. We need to revisit that. Fraternities would never have cameras because of liability and would actually state not to. I would think that they would, because it's property of the school, like the house or whatever. I don't know, guys. Let's continue this. Stay with me.
You said Xana was a friend and Ethan was is a member of the house? Okay, got it.
And what was your name again?
Reed.
And are you an officer here at the...
I'm the president.
The president of the frat house.
Yeah. Okay. So I gotta head to class. Thank you guys for coming. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you guys for coming. We're not here because we're here to talk to you. Like, we're here because there was a quadruple murder. But thanks for thanking us for coming. It's just so weird. I'm sorry. And good morning, Angel. It's good to see you. Exactly. Frats don't want illegal activities recorded, right? All their hazing and all that. Jesse Lynn, you thought that was weird too. Thanks, guys. WTF. Right? So dismissive. I think so too. Heather is feeling it. What an odd statement. I agree, guys. I'm sorry. I know people are coming at me for going after this kid, but there's something weird. Yeah, they're getting no information from those boys, none. And I'm concerned that they're being this tight-lipped with authorities behind closed doors. Oh, okay, the house, the university doesn't own the house that they live in. Because I know that sometimes they own houses that are off campus that frats live in, but not this one. Right, BT. He's just being professional, I suppose, right? Thanks, ATS. I wake up and get so pissed if I see it's way past 8 a.m. Yeah, I've tried to change my time to 8:15 to give me a little bit more buffer, but strange thing to say, in my opinion. I agree. I mean, maybe it's nothing. I want to lay it out there that it could absolutely be nothing. And since I have it paused and we're talking about something could be absolutely nothing, obviously you guys seen this video clip that's been going around. Apparently CDT pointed this out that Maddie points at. They're saying that it's the hoodie guy and says F you. A lot of people have been looking at this footage. Some people think that she's pointing at Joe V, the bigger dude with the beard, and saying F you. I don't know, guys. I just wanted us to kind of visit this little segment. I know that Inside Edition even aired this. It's just interesting.
That was a solid rush. It's a good thing that it ended, but this is Friday and Saturday in a row.
So I hear it. Like, I know that there's the people talking on the truck, the food truck, but she points and she says, F you. Now, I don't know if she's pointing at hoodie guy or Joe, but let's see that again real quick.
That was a solid rush. It's a good thing that it ended, but this is Friday and Saturday in a row.
A very suspicious character that would.
So I don't know exactly what that little guys, I can't even talk this morning. Anyways, I don't know what was going on there, but it's just a little interesting thing. And I know that CDT pointed that out weeks ago before Inside Edition. So CDT did just check with Xana's father's statement, and he said, okay, she said, but it is two statements. He doesn't indicate she was home at 12, aka midnight, says spoke at 12 a.m. and then later says they were hanging out at home, not as in at 12. Right. So thank you for double checking that. That is something that is interesting though, because was he under the impression that she was home around midnight? You know, that's just very interesting too, though. And so this here on the screen, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's kind of just to clarify who is who. Jake's and Jack's in this case. Joseph W. is the food truck employee. Jack S. is hoodie guy from food truck video, apparently was recently kicked out of his fraternity for acting crazy. Again, this is all alleged. This is all hearsay and stuff that we've all discovered through researching this and web sleuths alike. So Jack D is Kaylee's recent ex-boyfriend, who she and Maddie called right before their death. And again, we don't know for sure that that was Maddie and Kaylee calling him. Now, I'm under the impression that it can still be somebody else using their phone. I know that that's out there as a theory, but I still think that what if the perpetrator wanted people to think that it was the ex-boyfriend Jack? So they take their phones and they call Jack to kind of point in the direction of like, why were they calling you right before they died? You know what I mean? Again, that's just a theory. I don't want you guys to say that that's a fact. So Jack K, this is the guy who Ethan sent money to the night of with a note on it saying thanks. He also set up the GoFundMe for Ethan and donated $6. Jake is Maddie's boyfriend, who was apparently 5 hours away at the time of the incident.
Spotted on camera at the food truck.
So here is the segment from yesterday in News Nation, Ashley Banfield, and she is going to mention the hoodie guy and his suspicious behavior. And again, we've been looking at hoodie guys since this started, but law enforcement has come out and said he's not to be believed to have any involvement in this crime at this time.
And the reason he was suspicious is because he was lingering. He wasn't there to buy food, didn't appear that he bought any. He stood behind the girls while they were paying and ordering. And then he even...
That's a good question, Lex. So Lex said he was for sure or allegedly kicked out of the frat. And what about the corner bar? Also a rumor? Right, because there is rumors going around that he was kicked out of the corner bar for being creepy with girls. There's a rumor now that he's been kicked out of this frat. I mean, what is going on? All we know is law enforcement has said that we don't think that he's involved. Sorry about that, guys.
Move the 10 to 15 feet when they shuffled 10 to 15 feet and waited 10 more minutes to get their food, all the while watching them, but not doing anything else. And then as soon as those girls turned to leave, he was right on their tail leaving as well. So.
And here on the screen is just some stuff that somebody had put together that I matched with Ashley's report on this subject. And it's just basically honing in on how, strange his behavior was in that video. It's pointing out that as soon as the girls leave, the hoodie guy throws up his hands like they left me, and then he then follows them. This is also pointing out the fact of an former FBI agent, Jennifer Coffinduffer, made a comment about this guy on Twitter. And I thought that I would coincide all this with Ashley Banfield's report. So retired FBI agent Jennifer Coffinduffer writes, can't commit a crime if he wasn't there. Alibi is he was driving from 2 a.m. to 7 a.m. This is easy to refute. Confirm with GPS, tower pings, phone receipts, camera evidence. Law enforcement publicly said Jack not to be involved, as they've corroborated alibi with objective proof. So she's kind of shortening her statement because it's Twitter, but she basically is saying, like, if they've cleared him, they must have checked these types of devices and elements for them to say he's not involved. Now, have they done those things with the phone and the pings and all that? I think that we're just assuming so, right? And good morning, Diane. It's good to see you. So while we are very suspicious of his behavior still, exactly, Seagate, phone data will be interesting for all. Exactly. And remember, Kaylee's mother had said in one of the first interviews, they have a lot of evidence. A lot of it is digital forensics. So let's carry on.
That raised a lot of suspicion, Dan, and then to have him cleared so quickly, Kaylee's father is very upset because he's hearing that that person did not give DNA and also may be out of the country by this point. So these are...
And here she just reported what everyone else has been kind of gossiping about. He didn't give his DNA and now he's in Africa or whatever. Now, I haven't seen anything confirmed by law enforcement that that's true, but Ashley Banfield's reporting it, and everything through the grapevine of social media has also said the same thing, that now he's not around and he's in Africa. BT said police have made mistakes before. This is a rookie team, right? They haven't worked a murder since 2015 and nothing of this magnitude. They have over 40-something FBI agents on this. I mean, they have the resources. Do I think that there's still room for mistakes? Yeah, I am concerned that it's a quadruple homicide for a community that hasn't even had one homicide in years, So this is the rumors that are going around about this hoodie guy. Fled the area. Now, we don't know if that means he just went home for Thanksgiving or what. And I didn't make this. Somebody else put this together. Kicked out of fraternity for anger issues. kicked out of corner club for being creepy with girls, has K-bar knives, and no stranger to gore per hunting pics. One of the last people to see them alive, and his alibi is allegedly leaving the grub truck that night, and he drove home. Now, that was Thanksgiving vacation, so just interesting, you know, is it something, is it nothing? Yeah, I don't know who put this together, but this is just the rumors that are going around. And now we have, and that's the thing, is like, we've known about this for days. I don't really like to bring stuff to you guys unless it's been 100% confirmed, but Ashley Banfield covered it. So I figured, you know what, let me just bring it up to everyone's attention. And wherever the cards lie, then they will lie. Again, I want to make it clear that we just don't know anyone's involvement, and it could actually be nothing. Same with the president of the fraternity. His strange behavior, in my opinion, could be absolutely nothing.
Things that I think as a family you would be very upset by, certainly in the absence of any other solid information coming their way.
What's going to be a tremendous help on the DNA.
So this is a report not from yesterday. I believe this came out Monday, and I just wanted to get your guys' opinion on it. And, you know, he just is going hard a little bit on Kaylee's family, the way that Steve is speaking out and all that. So I just don't know, guys. I'm not 100% siding with this guy's opinion, but I felt like it was interesting, his viewpoint of how Kaylee's father is coming out and saying everything that he's saying. Again, this guy is former FBI.
Is when they find DNA that's mixed. There's so many people in that house that there's going to be DNA spread all over the place. It's what DNA is mixed in with the blood on the bed, in and around where the 4 victims were at. Because
now, as far as them asking for DNA, did they ask Hoodie Guy for DNA and he just declined? Because that's a rumor going around. So I'm curious. And also, they can ask anyone to give DNA. You don't have to give it. But I'm curious if, like, did he say no and then they had to get like a warrant and then he left the country in between that time, or what? I don't know.
these were violent attacks. It was most likely a male, physically fit enough to.
Yes, Brian Enton and Ashley Banfield are claiming that he didn't give DNA, right? But yeah, Granny said, I heard they never asked. There's a lot of things going around. Why will they never try to get a warrant, Alicia? They need to get DNA from Hat Guy, can't get past him. Yeah, that house is a fingerprint, hair, and DNA nightmare to process. Whoever did this would have cuts, absolutely. The family are elite of the elite. That's what I'm hearing.
Stand over 4 people and potentially have to fight these 4 people. But in any case, as he is stabbing, he's also losing skin cells, hair, and those types of things can be used for DNA.
And isn't that interesting to think about skin cells during this whole thing? Like, I know we all kind of assume, like, yeah, I mean, they could scratch him and underneath their nails, there'll be like skin cells. But just from, you know, the attack itself, he's saying like there could be skin cells. So that's very interesting, in my opinion. If they want his DNA and he doesn't give it voluntarily, they will need a warrant if they want it that bad. Exactly.
DNA that would be mixed in.
The points of damage don't match. What does he mean by this, you think?
Well, to tell you the truth, I don't know what this guy means. I'm going to take a little bit of a turn on this because this individual, he's doing an interview, it seems like every 4 to 8 hours. And many of these different news agencies are putting what he has to say all over the airwaves. And they're not looking at the totality of the things that this guy says. He himself, not law enforcement, he says conflicting things constantly, and he says things that are very odd over and over again. I've worked a lot of different cases. I spoke to a lot of different law enforcement. In fact, one police officer who was a mayor of a town in Springfield and a 20-year police officer reached out to me yesterday and said he's never seen anyone that seemed like they have committed a homicide more than Mr. Goncalves.
That just makes no sense. This guy is just on here for his 15 minutes, in my opinion. Like, why? What is the objective of him coming on here talking badly about Steve? Like, I know that some people have said things like, you need to not, say so much. But this guy's on here saying that somebody that I know got a hold of me and said that they've never seen somebody act more like they've committed a homicide than Steve Gunn, blah, blah, blah. What? I know it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. I just don't get this guy's like angle. Like, you might not like it, but what the heck?
Now that's something when we're looking at his statements that he is consistently making to the media, and the media is overlooking the fact that he is saying things. And I have some of the things that he says right here. He says that that nobody in the room, that it was fast and nobody suffered. Right?
Yeah,
There's
how
been
would
no
he know
report
that?
on them. He's also said that he's just going to say it. This is a quote from Kaylee's dad. I'm just going to say it. It was leaked to me. I earned that. I paid for that funeral. I sent my daughter to college. She came back in a box. He went to when they had their service for all the four slain, and made jokes and talked about the lighting. I mean, this individual is bothering me.
How is he going to rip apart how this father grieves? So he's saying how, oh, well, he was at the memorial making jokes about the lighting. Okay, well, for one, people do very, very strange things when they're going through grief. I'd love to know if this guy has ever lost a child. You know what I mean? Like, what in the heck? I was infuriated as I was watching this. But at the same time, he brings up the points of some of the information that Steve has said. We don't know that, like, some people are taking what Steve has come out and said as Kaylee was the target 100%, but we just don't know that. We just only know that she had worse injuries than Maddie. So, I don't know. I just think that while this guy is super annoying, it is important to keep in mind that just because Steve has come out saying certain things about the case doesn't mean that, like, the father has like the case files and knows what direction this is going in. You know what I mean? But yeah, this guy's just a plain jerk and obviously doesn't understand grief process. Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, chat is pretty much agreeing.
And many people very much. And if at the very least, he is causing law.
This was on Mainstream Hooptastic, and good morning. I just clipped out a few of this stuff and then added on the graphic there on the screen. So somebody else asked something. Oh, no. Allegedly with Brittany J sent me a super chat. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And thank you all for being here. All I ask is you guys to hit the like button. That's all. Everything else is greatly appreciated. And thank you so much.
Enforcement, more problems, I think, than anything else.
So he's saying, this father, that the killer went up that second floor and went through the sliding glass door. Have you heard any police reports saying that, that was how the killer entered the home?
We've heard no definitive police reports that say that, although I do believe that is correct. I think when you...
And that was the other part that I do want to make it clear that, like, just because Steve has come out saying like they came through the sliding door and went up the stairs, he didn't have to go upstairs. Like, all this makes it seem like we know the order of deaths, and we still don't know the order of deaths. Like, I heard Nancy Grace coming out saying that Ethan and Xana were killed first. Now this guy's saying that Steve is saying that the girls were killed first upstairs. We just don't know the order. And I think that we should keep, that as like a fact that, even though people have come out, and even other talking heads, other FBI agents and all this guy, even this guy is going to say, I agree with that theory. But ultimately, we just don't know the order of the deaths, and we don't know just exactly what the crime scene looked like, you know, because some people have said that Ethan was out in the hallway. Some people have said, no, it must have been the room because the blood leaking out to the outside, you know. I'm almost wondering, did the perpetrator drag Ethan back into the bedroom and lock and shut the door? You know, because the surviving roommates claim that they couldn't reach them by phone or whatever, and they were behind doors that were locked. So if there was a struggle that took place, was Ethan then dragged back into behind closed doors or something like that? Or was the struggle that took place just in the bedroom, and the rumor of Ethan being in the hallway was just a rumor?
Look at the two individuals, the two females that were in the first floor, and that first floor opens up into a common living room type space. I guess there's bedrooms there, and those go upstairs. It's almost like a second apartment.
Yeah.
And the second floor has its own main area, and then there's the third floor. This Mr. Goncalves, he continues to push out there details about this crime that nobody really knows about. We do know that people were killed on the second and the third floor. I personally have never heard any reports where they were saying that that there was different types of attacks and ferocity amongst the different victims. The only person.
Well, he's about to say the only person who has said that is Kaylee's father, Steve, but that's not true, because the coroner even came out saying some of them had defensive wounds and that some of them were in bed. First, she came out saying that they were asleep. Then she came out with a new statement correcting herself and said some of them were in bed. So for this guy to say the only person who's come out and told us this stuff is Steve, Kaylee's father, that's not true. The coroner has said certain things that Steve, I think, has maybe pieced together.
That said that is this same individual, and in the way that he talks about how his daughter and the other girl that was with her were sleeping in the same bed. That information was not released until he said it.
Oops, sorry. Thank you, Seagate. All I was saying is, thank you for watching the edited clips that I put together. All of those clips were highlights since Monday when we spoke last. What else was I saying? That was pretty much it. Like that, I was just playing the highlights, and I hope you guys liked them. Let me just pull up the Court TV segment that I want to watch with you guys, and we'll just watch that together. And then that'll conclude everything. So I haven't watched this yet. It came out, I think, yesterday. I really like watching Court TV and Vinny specifically. So I was hoping that we could watch this together. And I'll just pause it and we can elaborate and all that. So thank you for being here again, guys. Please hit the like button if you haven't done so already.
Murders of four. Another week has passed in Moscow, Idaho, and still no arrest in the murders of 4 college students: Maddie, Kayla, Xana, and Ethan. And as the investigation continues, Kaylee's father, Stephen Goncalves, is growing impatient and is speaking out about what happened to his daughter, who he thinks was targeted, and is now questioning why certain people were quickly cleared by investigators. And it's reported he's now hiring his own private investigator. Tonight, what does this rift between Kaylee's family and police mean, and how will it impact the investigation? Tonight, we take a closer look.
I just want to ask chat and those who are watching on replay your opinion here, because I'm very curious. Now, this is a quadruple homicide. This is not just Kaylee's death and Kaylee's father seeking justice. Do you think, or if you were the parent of one of these victims and you seen Kaylee's father saying specific details about the crime, etc., would you be a little bit nervous that he would say too much that might hinder justice for your own child? Again, I'm not saying that that's how I would feel. I'm just curious because I could see maybe somebody else being like, buddy, like, it's not just your child here. Like, we don't want all these details put out there yet. I don't know. I'm just curious your guys' opinion there.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And here we are, the start of another week. It was November 13th when those 4 students in Idaho were murdered. And as we sit here tonight, still no arrests. No suspect has been named. No person of interest has been named. We've had a bunch of people cleared, but no one's been named. And a lot of people are wondering what is going on. How difficult of a case is this? Could this case go cold? Could we end up with another situation like Delphi, where it's years before these families get some sense of an answer and hope for some justice in the case, holding someone responsible for this absolutely horrific set of murders? This is a mass murderer we're looking for. A mass murderer. Extreme.
Sorry, guys. I accidentally exited the studio. Oh, gosh. Give me a second, guys.
Wants justice, and he's been the most outspoken. And he's also done a lot of work with his family in trying to help investigators as much as possible, putting together timelines, breaking into the code for his daughter's cell phone and providing as much information as possible. And you can imagine the thoughts of a father. You know, you raise your little girl, and then comes the moment where she has to leave home to go away to college. And yeah, it's tough, but you know if that moment has to happen and you want to support the children, you want to support your daughter and do everything you can, and that's what he did. I mean, the dad did, and mom and the whole family, I mean, they did everything right to get her to that next step. And that next step, those 4 years are supposed to be amazing. They should be amazing. You get to grow up, you get to learn, you make incredible friendships, and you get ready. It's that step between, you know, being a child and then becoming a fully functional, independent adult. But dad can't be there to protect you. And that's got to be part of the frustration that he is feeling tonight and every night. And he wants justice. And he's at a place right now where he feels like I may not get it. That I don't necessarily believe in these investigators and trust what is happening. Now we've heard that several people have been cleared by the Moscow police. So we've heard, because a case like this, obviously there's going to be a lot of rumors. Oh, we should look at this one, look at that one. The internet is notorious for this, right? That people are convicted before, you know, there's real evidence. So they have publicly cleared many, many people. And the question is, have they cleared anyone who maybe shouldn't be cleared? I don't know. I haven't seen the evidence. They have. When they clear someone, I tend to believe police, unless they're doing it for some investigative purpose, right? Now, we heard over the weekend for the first time from the 2 surviving roommates. And I can't imagine what's going on in their minds. I mean, the loss of 4 friends, then being in the house where this quadruple murder took place, and somehow, some way you were able to survive it all. You know, that's a difficult spot. Obviously, you're thankful that you're alive, but by the same token, that's survivor's guilt that you're feeling. And then, you know, everyone was waiting to hear from you. Well, they spoke over the weekend, and it was they wrote a letter that was read by a pastor, and I want to play part of that for you now, so you can hear the words of 2 of the roommates, the 2 who survived.
To my 4 best friends who deserve to live a long, happy life, my life was greatly impacted to have known these 4 beautiful people. My people who changed my life in so many ways and made me so happy. I know it will be hard to not have the 4 of them in our lives, but I know Xana, Ethan, Maddie, and Kaylee would want us to live life and be happy, and they would want us to celebrate their lives. Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan were truly all one of a kind. They all lit up any room they walked into and were gifts to this world. I wish every day that I could give them all one last hug and say how much I love them.
And I think about the bond that they must have had, you know, the friendships that are made in college. I mean, for a lot of people, these become lasting, lifetime relationships, and you become very.
So it was a little bit too sad for me to watch the whole memorial. I did watch highlights of it and a little bit of it on our live stream with what Court TV showed of it. My question is, did the president of the fraternity speak at the memorial? Does anyone know? Like that guy that was in those interviews that was like, I got to get to class. Did he speak at the memorial?
Very close because you're living together, you're experiencing things together, you're growing up together in those final few years, and for all of that to just be taken away by this killer is difficult. But we got a few things to talk about tonight, and a lot of focus tonight. We want to talk about where we are in this investigation and this relationship between a family, you know, Kaylee's father and their family, and the level of frustration they're feeling in a murder and series of murders that took place on November 13th. And here we are in December, and it doesn't seem from the outside looking in that we're any closer to solving this, having someone arrested, someone held responsible. So let's bring in our guests to try to get some more information here tonight. Joining us tonight in New York City, senior reporter for the U.S. Sun, Luke Kenton, is back with us. In Woodlands, Texas, former senior special agent with the Drug Enforcement Administration and founder and CEO of the Global Security Group, David Katz, is with us. And also in New York, private investigator, founder of Black Ops Private Investigators, former New York City policeman, Manuel Gomez, back with us. Great to see everyone tonight. Luke, let me begin with you and the fact that we finally heard from the surviving roommates.
So Chad is telling me that they didn't see the president of the frat speak at the memorial. No, he didn't. Only a friend of Ethan's did, which was with another frat. So not the frat that he was in. Maybe the president had class that day too.
This is emotional. And we've seen these vigils for the communities, the schools, the friends, the families. This has been a very emotional few days here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, particularly with the two surviving roommates, what they must have been through over the last 3 or 4 weeks is unimaginable. Waking up to something like that happening in your home, to some of your best friends, you can't imagine what they must be dealing with. But it's also a crime, as we know, and as we've seen from the attention it's got over the last few weeks, that's touched and affected a lot of people, and a lot of people now want answers because of that.
Absolutely. What are you hearing? What are you finding out and seeing coming from Kaylee's father, Steve Goncalves, in this level of frustration and this seeming rift with local law enforcement out in Idaho?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm glad you brought that up, Exploitation Nation USA, because this was something Judy Ron brought up weeks ago when, right when it had occurred that some of the victims were cremated. She said, anyone cremated right after a murder is being forced into an awkward situation of finding further evidence if needed by others. I mean, there's no way that you can exhume a body. There's no way you can get a second opinion or a third opinion on an autopsy or anything like that with cremation. It's as soon as I heard that some of them were cremated, I was like, oh my gosh, because, although they do take video and photos and, all that of autopsies, I was like, there's no way that we could ever re-examine something. And I hate to go down on one of the parents for making that decision because it's terrible, but it's just unfortunate because that body, whether it's been buried or not, you can exhume it. Now, if anyone's ever seen the documentary, The Staircase, about the murder, Michael Peterson was the husband accused. He signed a plea deal, etc. There was a point where they were looking at another murder that had taken years and years prior, like I'm saying back in the 80s, and they exhumed that woman's body to help out with this other case, and they described the body as looking so pristine. Now, I never thought that that's what embalming fluid did. Maybe I'm just ignorant, but I just always assumed, like, even after 15 years, even with embalming fluid, like, you would still deteriorate. Well, this documentary shows that they pulled that body out after, so long. Drew Peterson. Thank you, guys. Drew, not Michael. Michael's the other killer. Who was cremated? I believe, who did they say? Ethan, somebody else. I want to say Xana, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, they can exhume a body and it can be pretty much look like you just buried them, and it can be so long, decade later. So I never knew that. I thought that eventually, they only look good for the funeral and the wake, but apparently that stuff is long lasting. So it's just, it definitely is an element in this case that's kind of like, oh no, I hope they don't need those bodies for a re-examine, and that they're okay to have been cremated. Maddie and Kaylee's ashes are sitting together. Oh my gosh.
Frustration seems to be palpable at this stage, and kind of understandable at the same time. We've seen police release a series of seemingly contradictory statements at times. You've got different statements from police and prosecutors, and at the same time, as far as evidence and concrete leads are concerned, there hasn't been a great deal of information. Timelines are still quite murky. So, I think Kaylee's dad's frustration and lack of faith, I guess, at this stage is kind of understandable, which is why, he's gone to the lengths to hire a private investigator firm this early on, which I don't think is fairly typical in cases such as this. But, it seems to be a department that's not particularly well equipped to deal with a crime of this magnitude, or a crime that has this much attention on it. They haven't recorded a murder in Moscow, Idaho since 2015, and it seems like police are learning in real time.
Manuel, you're a private investigator. You also were in NYPD. I want to put up on the screen what Steve Goncalves said to the New York Post. The grieving father of murdered University of Idaho student Kaylee Goncalves is working with his own private investigators because he fears cops in the major case are too, quote, inexperienced. As well as his own fears, Goncalves said he started working with private investigators because there were enough insiders telling us we should be concerned about the lack of any clear leads in the November 13th murders of his 21-year-old daughter and her 3 friends. Manuel, your thoughts, your reaction to the fact that the family has already gone down that route and doesn't have confidence. How is that relationship now once the family hires a private investigator? How do private investigators work a case that are actively being worked by law enforcement?
Well, I have to say, first of all, I agree 100% with the father hiring a private investigator. For the fact is that the police there have been dropping the ball throughout this case. From what I've read, this is not, in my professional opinion, and I've done numerous murders cases, one person that did this murder. And the reason why I say that is because these people were not gagged, they were not tied up, they were stabbed numerous times. Now, Kaylee and Madison were in the same room, and according to the mother, in the same bed, sleeping side by side. So the fact that Kaylee was stabbed numerous times, Madison would have woke up. So that tells me that there was someone holding Kaylee while she was being stabbed, and someone was straining her. Because
Now, I've heard this theory mentioned before, holding somebody down. It's just, was somebody even the lookout? It's not hard to imagine that there could be more than one. It's actually more hard to imagine that one person came in here with one knife and killed 4. But again, I'm not 100% on the theory that it was more than one person. I'm just saying I do think that that's a good theory and something that we should leave as a possibility.
The body kicking those numerous times while they're stabbing, the other person would have woke up and screamed. So that's the first thing. So that's why I agree, one, on aspect that they hired a private investigator. Second, that the cops said that there was no threat to the community. Like you said before, this is a serial killer. He killed 4 people. They killed 4 people. That's my professional opinion. And second, that they were both sorority and fraternity members. Now, the fraternities and sororities, they're all prime suspects. Why hasn't their DNAs been checked? I know for a fact, looking at Ethan, the size of him, there is no way you're not going to tell me that that boy did not put up a struggle and scratch.
And after, let's say Ethan was the 3rd one to go. Again, we don't know the exact order of the murders, but this person murders, let's say hypothetically, the girls first upstairs and then run into Ethan. I mean, it takes energy to murder 2 girls, even if they were laying in bed, So this person then takes on Ethan, by himself. And again, this guy is being suspicious of the sororities and fraternities too. So, me kind of thinking that the president's statements were kind of odd, and the fact that he didn't speak at the memorial service as strange, then, this guy is also, in his professional opinion, is thinking that there's something strange about that too, and wants them to give their DNA.
The perpetrator, or Kaylee didn't scratch the perpetrator, or Madison. Okay, there is no way that none of these kids scratched that perpetrator. I can almost guarantee that it has to be DNA evidence, and this is why I agree 100% that this father hired a private investigator, because, like the other investigator said, they haven't had a murder there since 2015, and they're playing hurry up and catch up to learn how to do this.
Now, while I finish this up, for those watching on replay and those in the live chat, tell me right now would you hire a private investigator?
David Katz, I want to put up on the screen the response from the Moscow Police Department in part of their update today. With the active criminal investigation, law enforcement has not released additional facts to the family or the public. We recognize the frustration this causes and that speculation proliferates in the absence of facts. However, we firmly believe speculation and unvetted information is a disservice to the victims, their families, and our community. The Moscow Police Department is committed to providing information whenever possible, but not at the expense of compromising the investigation and prosecution. David, what's your assessment so far? Here we are. Again, we go back to November 13th, a quadruple murder, and we don't have a publicly named person of interest or suspect in the case. And now we've got some friction with the family.
Frustration is understandable, of course. I don't blame the police department for withholding certain information. They can't do that without jeopardizing, in many cases, the investigation. I will note this. Earlier today, I was reading a few articles and conversations that the father had with various members of the press. And he mentioned that one investigator on team was 26 years old. And my first thought was, I know guys who spent 26 years in homicide. So there's a level of experience. If the Moscow Police Department hasn't had a number of homicide investigations, if the state police in Idaho have not had a number of investigations, the FBI forensic murder is not a federal offense except in very narrow areas. So we don't have trained homicide investigators. So from that standpoint, they may have good forensics, and I don't have any FBI forensics is great, but I think they would profit by having someone who spent a lot of time working a lot of homicide cases, active investigations, and they really need to get their press department. They probably don't have a press department, but their media communication is not that great.
Now, Steve Goncalves told Fox News that he believes the killer's target was Kaylee or Maddie based on their location on the 3rd floor in the house.
There's a couple things that tell me with common sense, but I'm not a professional, so I want to specify that. But they've said the entry point was the slider or the window. It was in the middle floor. So to me, he doesn't have to go upstairs. His entry and exit are available without having to go upstairs or downstairs. Looks like he probably may have not gone downstairs. We don't know that for sure, but he obviously went upstairs. So I'm using logic that he chose to go up there when he didn't have to.
Luke, and the layout of this house is, I think, a very significant part of this whole case. And we've seen pictures of it, 3 different levels. The entry point is going to be significant here.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Kaylee's dad as well. It seems like from what he said over the weekend as well, another comment that he made, I think, which was quite telling, was that he said the victim's wounds didn't match one another. He was pretty vague on the details, but something that would suggest to me is, if one of the victims has more severe wounds than the other, we know this is a stabbing, which is a very personal form of murder and a vicious one too. If one of those 2 girls who were slept next to each other had more severe wounds than the other, then it would point to the fact that this was targeted towards one of the girls, and then perhaps the other one was, an innocent bystander, or in the wrong place at the wrong time, should we say.
David Katz, I look at the house, and there's 3 levels. The 2 survivors who we heard the pastor reading their words, they're down on that bottom level where there is a door. On the 2nd level, there's a sliding glass door that goes to that 2nd level. Kaylee and Maddie are up on the 3rd floor. You've got to go up the stairs to get there. So if investigators continue to tell us this was a targeted attack, do you agree that the target would have been the 3rd floor if, in fact, this was a targeted attack? If the entry point is that sliding glass door?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is all speculation. Everything we're talking about today is highly speculative. So because we don't have a lot of facts to work with, but I will posit this. Someone made a statement early on. They don't know whether the girls were targeted or the house was targeted. Not that I know how you target a house. I'm not really sure about that. But it could mean that the lights were on upstairs and none were downstairs. So perpetrator comes in and goes to where they believe people are. My gut feeling is that this was a targeted attack against someone, one or more of them, personally. The number and ferocity of wound attacks, that may or may not be the case. Depends on where they are and what those wounds really were like. It could just be, I don't mean to be overly graphic, but if one person is fatally stabbed with the first blow and the other person is resisting, you're going to have more wounds. So, it's hard to say. I would say that if there were other types of wounds.
See, and he brings up a good point. If you're stabbing somebody and the other person wakes and is resisting, that person's gonna have more wounds. So like I've said earlier in the stream, we can't just say Kaylee was the target out of the 4. We just know that Kaylee's injuries, and we only know this because of the father, were worse than Maddie's. So I think that it's still up in the air of who the target was, because like he said, if you wake up, and then the attacker's got to subside the person who's awake now, you know what I mean? That might be why that person has more stab wounds than the other, so it doesn't necessarily mean Kaylee was the target. But she very well could have been, but I still think that it's important for us to just report that we still don't know. We don't know for sure. We don't even know if Kaylee's injuries were worse than Xana's or Ethan's. And thank you so much, What's Up Buttercup, for that super chat. I really appreciate it.
So mutilation types wounds, then I would say that yes, that probably is a good indication that it was personal targeted to one particular individual.
All right, guests staying with us. When we come back, we're going to talk about the people who have been cleared already by law enforcement, because Kaylee's father thinks maybe some were cleared a little too quickly.
We do not believe the following individuals are involved in this crime: the 2 surviving roommates, a male seen at the grub truck food vendor downtown, specifically wearing a white hoodie, a private party who provided rides home to Kaylee and Madison in the early morning hour of November 13th.
So there's the captain talking about some of the people who've been cleared in the Idaho quadruple murder. Again, I want to put this up. This is from the Moscow police homicide update. Again, people not believed to be involved. 2 surviving roommates, the male in the grub truck surveillance video we were all talking about in the beginning, the driver who took Kaylee and Madison home from the grub truck, the male Kaylee and Madison called numerous times during the early morning hours of November 13th, any individual at the residence when 911 was called, and the individual on the lease who moved out of the residence before the school year started. That was this so-called 6th roommate who was not there. Now, going back to that New York Post interview with Kaylee's dad, he said that he admitted that he also fears that a hoodie-wearing man spotted lingering near his daughter and her best friend, Madison Mogen, also 21, was ruled out too quickly for killing the pair and their 2 friends. Some people came to us and said that he's out of the country. He didn't take a DNA test, is what Kaylee's father told the New York Post. Luke Kenton, senior reporter at the U.S. Sun, still with us. David Katz, former special agent at the DEA, and Manuel Gomez, private investigator, still with us. Luke, so the father is saying, hey, look, take a look at this video again, folks. This guy, why was he cleared? It seems like he was cleared too quickly. What do we know about the guy with the hood? Do we know much more about him?
I mean, as is with so much of this case, there's a lot of speculation about who that individual is. There's been a lot of chatter online that he was a member of a frat party on campus who was kicked out recently. It remains to be seen if that's true. But it does seem awfully quick for police to rule out any suspect, considering he's among the very last people to have seen 2 girls alive. We don't know what his alibi was. The family don't seem to know that either. So I think sharing some of that information with them might help to ease some of the tensions. But it's incredibly troubling if he has indeed left the country, as that.
So is this the alibi that I'm assuming Steve and the family is saying that they want law enforcement to share with them? Because he had said something about something about sharing an alibi. So, like he said, police could just ease the family's mind by 100% eliminating this hoodie guy with the FBI agent, a retired FBI agent, Jennifer Coffendorfer's tweet that we showed earlier. The pings from his cell phone data from him traveling from 2 a.m. to 7 a.m. All that will corroborate a alibi for him, So is that where this clearance is coming from for this hoodie guy? Did they actually find data with a warrant that his phone was pinging off of this phone or this tower and that tower on his drive to his parents' house? So it couldn't have been him who committed the crime. Now, who would drive to go that far at 2 a.m. After, I just don't get like why he needed to go home right at that time. So it's just very questionable.
Comment would suggest and not supplying DNA in a case that seems to have so few leads at the moment. It's quite alarming to me.
And we're kind of still in the semester. I don't know if he's dropped out, if he's not going to school anymore. But again, I don't even know if he left the country. This is what the dad is saying. Manuel, so if a private investigator's on the case and dad's like, hey, this guy was cleared, but why was he cleared? Is that something that you think the private investigator would start tracking down and trying to find out more about this individual if he's been cleared?
Absolutely. The fact that he left the country indicates that there is some possibility of some type of criminality. And again, that's speculation.
Evasion, possibly. Again, speculation, but leaving the country, leaving at 2 a.m. that night, like, what are you evading?
But the fact that he left the country right after being talked to by the police puts him as a suspect. As a private investigator, and I hope the private investigators that the father hired are listening now, I would go to his house and collect hairbrush, dirty clothes, anything where there's DNA would be in the house, razors, toothbrush, all these DNAs would be still at the residence he has. At the residence, if it shows that everything has been taken out, then I would go back to the police and report it that clearly this guy should be considered as a suspect, and the family should consider tracking him down to whatever country he went to. The problem is now that he left America, extradition becomes harder, and most.
Well, the U.S. Marshals can bring him back. But yes, it's going to get harder if he, in fact, did leave the country. Again, we haven't heard law enforcement come out and say he did leave the country. We have this alibi. It's solid. We have him on camera here. We have his phone pinging from this tower here, blah, 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 blah. We have not gotten that from law enforcement. It's being reported that he did leave the country. So it seems legit. It seems like the rumors about it is true. Now, what will law enforcement say? Because I feel like at this point, they just can't stay quiet about this.
Cops won't go out there, but guys like me will. So I hope his guys do.
Yeah, David Katz, let me ask you this, because this is something a lot of people are wondering about too. Is there a time where you are going to publicly clear someone even though you haven't really cleared someone?
Well, I mean, there could be some tactical investigative reason why they're just saying the person is not, maybe the guy did flee and they want to keep the person at ease. I don't know why we accept the fact that this person is overseas. The father may have heard it from somebody. It may be true, may not be true. As for clearing somebody, you have to look at how let me give you an example. Let's say you take this fellow that is in the hood and someone says, yeah, well, he actually worked at the hospital, the 12 to 8 shift. He works at the front desk. And after that, where he's seen there, he reported to work, and we have him sitting at his desk for 8 hours straight during the time the murder was committed on tape. Then if they would just make that public, we'd say, okay, now I understand why they cleared it. But now they just say they cleared it, and someone says he went overseas, he dropped out of school. We have no idea. And again, once you have these facts that are unverifiable thrown into the case, how can anyone really make a solid judgment?
Yeah, and Luke, as we studied that video that night, and he obviously was the first person everyone was like noticing, because you see him in the hood, he's behind him. When Maddie and Kaylee moved to the other side of the food truck, he moves to the other side of the food truck. When Maddie and Kaylee's ride shows up, they leave, and then as soon as he notices that they left, he leaves. That was the reason everyone was looking at him, but then he was very quickly cleared after all that, because here's the other part of the video that we're watching. It looks like there's a little potential back and forth as well, but there's a lot of people here. I've got to suspect that all of them have something to say about what was actually happening at the food truck that night.
Yeah, for sure. There's quite an interesting moment in that video as well, where the individual in question appears to look up towards a camera, perhaps by the food truck, and then puts his hood up, which certainly seems to be slightly suspicious activity at first glance, if that's indeed what he is doing. But yeah, there seems to be some sort of exchange between the individual and the girls and another individual standing by. I think it's crucial to determine what was said. Some witnesses had told, I believe it was Newsweek, that he was concerned about them getting home and appeared to be a super nice guy. I think that was the owner of the food truck that said that. But again, we don't know. And like I said previously, I just think it's quite strange at this stage, unless they have concrete evidence, i.e. DNA, to disprove that this individual was linked, to rule him out so publicly and so quickly. I think that's something that they possibly may revisit further down the line.
Yeah, I mean, it really surprised me. David, I'll go back to you one more time. When there's a very public case like this, you don't want people to be, I guess, publicly a public target if everyone's talking about them. So if you can clear them. I can understand why you would want to clear them, like the roommates, like other folks who have some connection to what everyone is talking about. So they are safe as well, right? Because you don't want someone who the public is saying, hey, they're a potential murderer. You don't want them to get hurt if they're, if they become sort of the target of public chatter.
Yeah, look, I mean, a lot of people online, if you read some of the stuff, they're putting this guy in the electric chair already. There's a guy in a hood who paid attention to the girls, who, if you read some stuff into it, maybe he was camera conscious, maybe he left when they left. There could be a number of reasons that you would put him in the suspect pile. And then if you just ran it down, you don't need DNA. If, for example, he's talking to a girl, let's say that girl says, we went home together and we sat the whole night in my house with 6 other people, and you talk to those 6 other people and they say, this person did not leave the room. I don't need to take his DNA. Because I know I have multiple witnesses, I have camera, whatever the other physical evidence may be that may exclude that person. I just wish they would make it public so we could talk about something that might be, actually, something that's still a controversy.
Absolutely. All right, we've got much more to talk about in this case. We'll continue our coverage all week long here.
Nice to meet you. My name.
Okay, everybody, that's everything. Thank you all for watching that with me and watching the clips that I edited together. If you haven't seen those or you just joined us later, everything that was updated from law enforcement yesterday and some of the late night media coverage, I clipped out some of the highlights and put it in the beginning of the stream. So check those out and we'll just keep following this. I'm curious if CDT or allegedly with Brittany J are going live. If they are, I'll be over there in chat carrying this conversation on over there. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here with me. Please hit like, and I'll be putting together more updates, and we can meet back here again in a few days, or as soon as we get more information. I'll definitely put some highlights together for that. And then, we'll be talking very soon. So let me just pull up my outro, and you guys enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you for being here again.